I've just done a small talk about Rachel Reeve's black hole and about the promise that she's made not to raise taxes in the future. And somebody's just pointed out that she has this rather dodgy CV. Well, that's the point. In fact, I did mention that in the in the preamble, in the the thumbnail comments, but I didn't mention it in the actual talk. So let's just go back through that. Rachel Reeves, the UK Chancellor, faces mounting scrutiny over her claims of inheriting a 22 billion black hole from the Conservatives. That black hole, first of all, is questionable. Her argument justifies a significant £40 billion tax hike in the budget, while promising no further increases. But can she genuinely be trusted, especially when her fiscal narrative appears laden with contradictions? Her claim centres on a Treasury audit revealing overspending pressures totalling £21.9 billion, later reduced to £16.4 billion through Labour's announced savings. The alleged shortfall stems from areas such as public sector pay awards, £9.4 billion, asylum costs £6.4 billion, rail services £2.9 billion. While the figures sound damning, Conservative response has been minimal when it should have been sharp. The former Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, mumbled stuff about the black hole being a political device for justifying tax increases. He should have been analysing how that black hole has been calculated, particularly given the fact that there is enough information out there to question whether or not that black hole is a legitimate astral phenomenon, or indeed whether it's some sort of astral projection, a dream of Rachel Reeves's own devising. The Office for Budget Responsibility waded into the debate, revealing that £9.5 billion of hidden spending pressures were known before Hunt's spring budget. And while this supports Reeve's argument of fiscal mismanagement, the OBR refrained from legitimising her £22 billion figure, citing additional Labour spending decisions like accepting pay recommendations and cancelling the Rwanda scheme as inflating the total. Well, I would be quite prepared to accept that, but the other thing which is not specified by Rachel Reeves, or indeed particularly figured in the spending review, is that this 22 billion black hole would only materialise in 2028. So there's a period of time between now and 2028 when that black hole could be eradicated, even if it existed to the extent that it does. But we know that nearly £10 billion is probably justified. The rest is not. So it's not a £22 billion black hole. It's a £10 billion black hole, which won't materialise until 2028, if it comes at all. Now, I'm not sure that speculative astrological phenomenon justifies the pain of cutting the winter fuel allowance, the pain of the tractor tax, the pain of the student tax hike, and the cap on the two-child thing, and so on. I'm not sure all of this is justified on the basis of a projection of a £10 billion black hole that might only appear in 2028. Particularly when this is put forward by somebody who is now identified as a liar, who has lied on her CV. That's worrying, isn't it? Isn't that worrying? It worries me. Not that the lies on the CV are significant, but that this is somebody who is asking us to trust her. I will not increase taxes further. Her pledge at the CBI conference to avoid tax hikes and borrowing, therefore, should come under fire. She stated publicly that public services must live within their means, yet the ink was barely dry on her £25 billion increase in employers' national insurance, and critics, including Scottish Power CEO Keith Anderson, argue that these tax hikes undermine investment confidence, calling her fiscal policy an unprecedented raid on British business. Reeve's promise to avoid further tax increases echoes pre-election commitments that were swiftly abandoned. Why? Labour claims the Conservatives concealed the extent of fiscal pressures, yet as the Institute for Fiscal Studies notes, the scale of the challenge was discernible before Labour entered office. The black hole then becomes a convenient narrative, both a scapegoat for breaking promises and a justification for Labour's expensive fiscal ambitions. The very term black hole has drawn criticism for its misleading simplicity. The IFS points out that framing fiscal pressures this way obscures political agency, suggesting Reeve's tax rises are an unavoidable necessity rather than a choice. The independent economist Julian Jessop describes the 22 billion figure as more treasury spin than reality, pegging the actual figure closer to 10 billion. Labour's fiscal... 10 billion is not great, but it's not 22 billion. And it may be 10 billion in the future. So Labour's fiscal policy has alienated key stakeholders. At the CBI conference, business leaders expressed dismay over higher national insurance and minimum wage costs. Rupert Soames, the CBI chairman, warned that Labour's relationship with business risks fraying, undermining the electoral goodwill Labour initially garnered. Her black hole, Reeves' black hole, may have served as a useful political tool, but it raises serious questions about her credibility, her track record of breaking fiscal promises, of breaking her word, of her reliance on disputed figures, and the alienation of the business community. It suggests that her pledge to avoid further tax increases is as fragile as crossing her fingers behind her back. Easily made, easily broken. As Labour seeks to solidify its economic credentials, Reeves must prove, beyond fiscal theatrics and cheap stunts on her CV, that she can deliver coherent, transparent policies that actually are watertight. What she writes on this piece of paper, she needs to carry out on that. What she writes down needs to be believed. And until that point, because I don't believe her, until that point her promises remain as nebulous as the very black hole she's invoked. She's a nebulous nenuphar of negativity.